So we've had some interesting developments in technology in the first few weeks of the year, and something kind of caught my eye, and I thought it would be something interesting to talk about. It's probably something we're going to talk about on future episodes in more detail as this continues to roll out. But a day or so ago, David Hansen, who is the one who created Ruby on Rails, he's a part of 37 Signals, um, and which is Basecamp. Him and some folks over there wrote a lot of interesting business books, things that I've read over the last collection of years to challenge the way I think. I would probably describe um, David's perspective as contrarian as a consumer. So I thought this was really interesting, kind of the little bit of a rant that he's on. And normally I have a bunch of friends on this podcast, but I kind of wanted to capture some of my raw observations right now. So, one thing that we'll look at real quick. So on world.hey.com, which is, I believe, a software offering that 37 Signals or David himself just provides. Haven't really dug into it yet. Some type of mail blog thing. I don't know. I'm sure I'll get scorched for saying something like that if anybody listens to this. But he had this article about the only thing worse than cloud pricing is enterprisey alternatives. So, yeah, the public cloud, it can be pretty expensive. There's a lot of analysis that would go into the why that cost would make sense over running a data center or running from a colo. We could probably go round and round for hours on the benefits or the disadvantages of both. I think it comes down to a preference in the way you do business. But from what I'm seeing out there, 37 Signals runs a lot of their workloads on AWS, like a lot of companies do. And they've been doing it for a number of years. And basically, David's come out and said, we're spending, like $3 billion a year on AWS, and it's out of control and crazy. And that may be the case, right? I don't know the ins and outs of 37 Signals business. I don't know if it's become untenable due to any matter of factors. It could be, the way revenue's coming in, or maybe the scale of the cost isn't worth it, right? And it makes sense to bring it in house. I don't know. And David's a smart guy, so I'm not going to say his feelings are unjust, but I think it lacks some nuance on why. So in this article, which we'll link, it looks like he spent some time talking to our friends at SUSE about leveraging Rancher and Harvester, about bringing in his workloads off the public cloud. And, I'll let you guys read it, but basically it's just like, I spent $3 million in cloud services, and basically the quote I got back was $2 million, and that's just untenable. Is probably the professional way to say that. And then he goes into, a comparison around, like, when I buy a Dell server, its list price is $10,000, and then it actually ends up being $2,000. And, that I would expect discounts like that. So, okay, fine. If that's what you expect buying hardware, but buying hardware and software is different. Also, different companies have different styles around what they consider discounting, right? So, like, it's common to see discounts in the hardware space. I spent a bunch of years there. 50, 60, 70, 80% off of list, depending on volume and size and all that stuff, right? So there's a lot of profitability built into sling and iron, and that's the way the business always has been. So when I spent years in gray market technology, taking used hardware and remarketing that, of course we were marketing that at 80% off of list. And the key was, you can have it now. where, if you're going to buy through a traditional channel, you might have a lead time of 6, 12 months, before that hits your dock, and then you go install it, and all that good stuff. So I think the first thing to point out here is that it's a different world, right? Hardware vendor discounts are not the same as software vendor discounts. Additionally, I sell a lot of software. Those discounts typically don't trickle up to that level with the size of a company of 37 signals. They just don't. Your Ford, your GM, Coca-Cola, any of the big companies, obviously the tech companies that rule the world and are the most wealthiest in the world, like, yeah, they get discounts that like a lot of us don't see and a lot of our customers don't see. And they may be in the, you're going to pay 20 to 30% of list price, but that's not everybody. And that's not most people. And I if there's 37 signals is spending $3 million with AWS a year, and they're crying about how, expensive it is, that's a nominal number for AWS customers. So, the discount levels there are probably not that great. So, if they were spending 15, 20, 25 million a year, then we're probably looking at different discount tiers. So I think what's interesting about this article is that it's basically just a basically obscenity laced slam fest of SUSE. And I don't think that's particularly fair. Because I think everything in business is a negotiation. And, I'd probably say, all right, David, what is an approachable number for you to make a decision? What are you trying to target? I'm pretty sure he didn't lead with that. Again, assumption, allegation, right? But that's just not typically how customers buy things. They go, this is what I want. Tell me how much it is. And then you spend cycles and cycles and cycles trying to understand what their needs are. And often what they want and what they need are different. And then what they need cost X. And then it's like, oh, that's expensive, or that's way out of line. And I don't think that's a great way to do business. So like for me, I love being upfront about pricing. Hey, this is what it looks like list price. Well, can it be less? Sure. Maybe. Depends on what type of deal we're talking about. What is the timing of this? And I think at the end of the day, the quicker you can get to a round number around pricing expectations, then you can really get into the details of like the needs. And what I see here is there's clearly some lack of understanding between 37 Signals and our friends at SUSE around what the intent was. And, I think often the customer needs to do a good job of explaining this is what we're trying to accomplish. If it was, we're trying to get $3 million in AWS spend onto $500,000 a year worth of software investments, that's an easy place to start and start doing an analysis around, is that possible? And then someone could end up on the side of, well, can't do it for 500, but for, $790,000, it can be done. And then the customer has a decision to make. Does that make sense? Does that fit into what our financial goals are? So I look at this and it just becomes this like super broad strokes. I hate enterprisey everything. I'm tired of the cycle. Well, I would say this: the customer is a big part of the cycle. Like, give us the information you need. I don't want to do 12 meetings about a deal I don't know what size it is. That sounds terrible. So I just, I've seen some of our friends over at SUSE, probably trying to defend their honor a little bit around this. This is making the rounds on LinkedIn. It's, kind of interesting, but I'm just like, there's probably a better way to do this. Maybe not, just going out and airing dirty laundry on an experience. I mean, what if David just had a bad experience? I mean, that happens. right? Like the world isn't a walking Yelp review, like move on, find something else. I don't know. I think it's in bad taste. I would, I'd be disappointed in myself if I treated someone like this. So, but this dude races cars and stuff, and it's been super successful, and has built things. So he probably, he has a brand around being contrarian. So maybe this shouldn't be surprising to anyone. But you look at his Twitter, looks like he's on a tear. So we're gonna keep an eye on this. We'll probably talk about this in some detail over the next few weeks because I think it's going to be something that makes the rounds, and I think it's a topic worth talking about. Understanding and meeting expectations, and the things we say publicly. I mean, I always like to pull a stop sign here and just be like, should I say this? I'm probably having that feeling right now. Should I even be addressing this? But I think it's interesting for our industry, and I think it's interesting for anyone in technology to go, like this is the business of it, and sometimes the business of it doesn't get brought into the light a lot. There are list price for any type of solution out there. There are discounts available. That's why we work with companies and integrators and partners, to do that. I mean, if I was a manufacturer, I'd want all the partners in the world so they can deal with all this flack, because that's kind of a tough place to be in. So we'll keep an eye on this, and we should be dropping a full episode fairly soon. See you then.